I want you to put your cause. Your cause is right in the middle of the location. You're right in the middle, and you could even name your cause. This is where you are. The question is, where are you? And I want to conjecture that you are actually in the middle of a complicated crossroads. The crossroads are being traveled, each individual road is being traveled by someone who has the potential of helping you achieve your goals. So I'm switching from a bridge across the water to a crossroads, and you're in the middle. Put yourself in the middle, and there are roads coming your way from all directions. Now, these roads have names, and I'm going to name them now, and some will sound familiar. You ready? Politics is one road. Don't get nervous. I'll define it for you in a minute. The next road is policy. Policy is what are the rules, what are the laws, what are the budgets. The next road is program. Who are you affiliated with to implement? So there's politics, policy, and program. Then there are several other roads. One of them is media. One of them is business. One of them is philanthropy. And one of them is civic. Now, if you recall what I said earlier about the opposite side of the river, those are populated on the bank of the river that you want to approach. So you've got politics, policy, program, media, business, philanthropy, and civic. Now, when I say roads, these are roads that are traveled by opinion leaders and by powerful people every single day. But the question I'm asking is, which direction do they go? Do they head in your direction to find out more about how they could be of assistance, or are they going somewhere else? Because again, we're in competition. You realize that. And what I want to suggest is setting up signposts and lemonade stands along those roads. Now, follow me on this one. It's another analogy. When you're on a long trip and you get a little thirsty and a little hungry, and you see a sign that says, cool, fresh squeezed lemonade and delicious, nutritious cookies, you notice the sign, and then you keep going, and you start to lick your lips, and you see another sign that says, yes, right up the road, delicious cookies and cool lemonade. Chances are you're going to want to pull over. When you pull over and that stand offers delicious lemonade, nice and cool, and very good nutritious cookies, then you're happy. If there's false advertising and the lemonade is not good and the cookies are not good at all, you're going to feel like you've been kind of turned away or ripped off. I want to say that we need to set up signposts on the roads that these powerful people travel that give them the real deal, the real recipe for success, the real delicious cookies, and the real sweet lemonade. Now, when they pull over and get more information, they may even ask you for directions because you are the experts. Now, how does this really work? Let me talk about politics for a minute, and I don't consider it a dirty word, even though sometimes there are some shady things that happen in politics, but politics rule policy. It's politics that write the laws. It's politics that create the budgets, primarily if you have public funding. So let me tell you a little bit more about politics. Again, I've worked with thousands of political leaders. Number one, they really don't know everything. Frankly, they have to know a lot about many things, but they don't know the depth that you know about your cause. So what we need to do when we get their attention with our signs come our way, we need to be ready and willing to be positive teachers, to be leaders that say, this is why I'm involved with a cause. Now, again, I'm taking it for granted that we're smart and we're passionate, so we know how to share what our cause is with people who will make decisions. And what's essential is when they pull over, we need to be very open and positive with them. We need to guide them. Now, it's not only the individual candidate. We're going to talk about the election season in a minute. Don't worry, or worry, but I'll tell you about that. It's going to be their staff members. It's going to be their supporters. And frankly, you've got to be open to speak to their opponents as well, because there are rules that should keep us from preference. So when the political roads are traveled, usually the lanes are wider during election seasons, but they're never closed. They're always running for something. It's important for us to be positioned to give them the information that they need to make good decisions on our behalf. We are the experts. Now, that's that important road next to the policy road. Again, the policy road are budgets, and the policy road are statutes, the laws. What do the laws say, and how do we pay for it? We know there are lots of good intentions, but we need to finance them with good budgeting. And we are in a budget crisis right now because of the pandemic, because of economic challenges. I don't have to lay it on you too thick, but we are in deficit now between 3 and 4 billion with a B dollars. If you don't know, a billion is 1,000 million. That's a lot of bucks. And I'm smiling, but it's really a sad situation. So we are in a competitive arena for budgeting. But if our cause is worthy, we can find the resources. Now, what do I mean by the program road? This is where the action happens. This is what I call retail. This is where individuals are served in a plethora of settings, clinics, schools, elder homes, art centers, etc. Now, that is where the real action happens, and we've got to be prepared to have people who are involved as professionals, volunteers, and also family members who are served. I call them authentic voices. That program road needs to be ready to communicate clearly and convincingly about the policies that are necessary, the budgets that are required, and how politics can play with us versus against us. Now I'm going to take you on a very quick tour of the other 4 roads that we want folks to come our way. Media. There's no more effective megaphone than the media. I know it's complicated. I know some people say newspapers are dead. That's really not true. There has been a transition in how newspapers communicate, but I will tell you, even though about only 4% of literate adults read the newspaper page after page, opinion after opinion, only 4% of literate adults read the newspaper every day. I want to make a promise to you. 100% of decision makers and community leaders know what's in the paper every day. So it's called audience targeting. If you write an op-ed, if you write a letter to the editor, if your newspaper opinionates about a cause you care about, it's going into the eyes and ears of your public officials and your community opinion leaders. The other thing about media is the media tells the story that we can't tell by knocking on doors, whether it be radio, television, social media. There are a lot of ways of getting our story out. So that's why strategic communications, persuasive, powerful communications is essential for the cause. Business can be our ally. Workplace policies are important. Businesses are competing with each other, and sometimes they want to do some cause-related marketing. Your organization can be positioned to be their partners in cause-related marketing, and we can talk at length about strategies for that. Philanthropy, the getting of private money is only part of philanthropy. Please follow me on this. Philanthropy is a Greek term, philanthro, the love of humanity. You know, philanthro, like philosophical, is the love of knowledge. Philo pastry is the love of baklava. That's my joke. Hello. philanthropy is the love of humanity. Now, one way of showing philanthropy, showing that love, is a $50,000 check. Well, let's celebrate that. But there's another category of philanthropy that I strongly advocate, and I'm sure almost everyone on this call participates in it to some degree. I call it time philanthropy. You may call it volunteerism. That's okay. I call it time philanthropy. Now, why is that an important facet of our work? It's an important facet of our work because it's gifts of people's treasury of life experience on behalf of causes we care about. And there are some organizations, Guardian ad Litem comes to mind, that is really hubbed in volunteerism. We have collected in Florida, because of the good work of our Guardian ad Litem program, more than 12,000 active guardians helping children be represented in our dependency system. But there are many other philanthropic leads. There are philanthropic areas like Reading Pals for literacy, helping to mentor and counsel kids through Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Philanthropy, time philanthropy with our elders. And I know we're limited now on how often we can visit, but you get the picture. It's time philanthropy is an important philanthropy. And let me give you a hint. The more time philanthropy we deposit, the more money philanthropy we will accrue, because they work together. The more exposure folks have to your cause by individual connections with those you serve, the more likely they will give gifts for your treasury. I promise you that. And then finally, it's the civic road. The civic road is where there are clubs and organizations and faith community, and they can be very, very helpful in setting their members on the course of helping us. So again, here is the analogy. It's a very complicated crossroads, but if we set up our little signs that say, come our way, we have something to offer, and the folks traveling those roads who have some role in our success believe what we're saying because we're factual and persuasive, they will say yes to us. I'm very confident that is the story of effective communications and advocacy. So, two main analogies, building the bridge and navigating the crossroads, to me are the foundational concepts of effective and persuasive advocacy. I'm going to take another breath, and we're going to get into political season because that's what we're in the middle of now, election season. And I'm going to share with you some key tips on how to work what we can do legally, ethically during election season. So just give me a moment to take a sip of water. LaShawn, I promise it's water.
You sure about that?
I promised. Okay. Now, I am not an attorney. I know a lot of attorneys, and I'm a pretty good reader. I've been reading for quite a long time. Those of you who know me well know that I had a blind father, so I was his reader. So I've read since I've been 7, 8, 9 years old, and that's a lot of years ago. So I know something about what the rules are for not-for-profit, 501c3 advocacy during political years. So I'm going to give you some coaching, and you can check this out with your own folks and see if I'm right. First of all, partisanship. That is a danger zone. Now, I'm not saying as an individual you can't be partisan, whether you register with one political party or another, or you support individually a candidate. But be careful, or my Spanish-speaking friends say, cuidado, amigo. Be very careful, because it is against the law to show partisan preference with any resources of a not-for-profit organization. And those resources are not only money resources. You're not only prohibited from sharing contributions from your treasury, but it's time resources. You have to be very, very careful to not put any efforts into getting or opposing a candidate, getting them elected or opposing their candidacy. Now, again, that is very, very hard for some people to digest, but it's the rules. Plus, if you are a partisan through your organization, then you can get in trouble because half the people find that out, they don't agree with you, and you are therefore cutting away half of your market. So be careful with your bumper stickers, because your bumper stickers end up in parking lots and people see what car you're getting out of. You may think I'm being paranoid about this, but I know it's true because people talk to me. So one antidote to partisanship is to have balance on your board. Select board members for election who represent the political spectrum. Now, again, you may not want to take my advice. I just make suggestions. I don't make decisions, but every human service organization, in my experience, needs to have a balanced board that reflect the diversity of the politics of your community. So that's kind of key number one. It's foundational. Remember that third stanchion, organizational. That's one of my hints. Number two, during election season, you are allowed to talk to candidates, but you've got to offer your information and your wisdom and your access to all the candidates. You can't show preference. You're allowed to schedule virtual forums. You're allowed to safely, individually ask some of your family members who you serve to meet candidates. That's fine. There's no promise involved, but you can't show away from one candidate and preference with another. Again, I am pleading for caution. Now, in the election cycle, there are things that you can do and should do, and I want to make sure I underline this and put a neon sign next to it and flash it as brightly as possible, because we are in a critical time of a critical year. Have you noticed this is an election year? Florida law mandates that voter registration rolls are closed 30 days before the general election. We've already passed the primary, so I'm not going to look backwards. But in Florida, primaries have a 30-day rule, and so does the general election. October 5th is the last day that any citizen who is eligible at 18 years and over can register to vote. Now, some of you are saying, Jack, just move on. We know that. Friends, let me tell you, only about 65% of eligible citizens are registered voters. That's only about 2/3. And the more likely somebody who needs human services, however you define that, is a registered voter, is less likely than somebody who does not access those services. So I am telling you, one of the things that you can do in the next several weeks before the deadline of October 5th is encourage and empower the people you work with and the people you serve to be registered voters. You can't force anybody, and you certainly can't tell them what their party affiliation should be or obviously who they should vote for. But that they should vote is an empowerment strategy that we've got to take very seriously. We're permitted to do that. I think we're obliged to do that. And let me put a big underline about that, because in Leon County, and I think a good number of the folks who are within the sound of my voice this morning are Leon County residents, we have an initiative on the ballot called the Children's Service Council. There are 9 counties in Florida that have successfully passed children's service councils to focus on the needs, especially in the preventative areas like access to health care, quality prevention services. And Leon County and our neighbors to the way west, Escambia County, hubbed in Pensacola, are going to the ballot. Now, whether you vote for or against children's service councils is really up to you. But the fact that that is on the ballot this year is important for our people to know and let them make that decision. Now, let me speak about staff for a moment. Not only our staff within our own organization, some of us have smaller staffs, and some of us have larger staffs, but we have to realize that staffs are very important communicators, and that's true of candidates and elected officials also. We should never ignore the power of elected officials, staff members. They are the gatekeepers. They are the note takers. They are the ones who decide sometimes who will be met with. So please respect and regard staff members. Never ignore them. Again, I've been in and out of that Capitol at the corner of Monroe Street and Jefferson literally thousands and thousands of times over my career. And I do my best to be very friendly, be very positive, and be very persuasive with staff members. And that's true all through the governmental system. So never ignore staff members. Let me just share another thing about voting. It is really the great equalizer. I know there are some exceptions, like the fight for getting felons who have served their terms the right to vote. But by and large, most 18-year-olds over the age of 18, I should say, and citizens can be voters. Whether you are a CEO of a corporation or you're the janitor who cleans that corporation's halls and bathrooms, you are equal in the eyes of the voting law. Everyone has one vote. Now, let me just tell you this, because it becomes a challenge to have folks who pretty much say, oh, well, my one vote doesn't matter. We've got to dispel that myth. Every single vote matters. And we have to honor those who have died, who have fought, who have battled. We just lost John Lewis just weeks ago, one of the great icons who marched and bled and pled for the right to vote. Our women now, after 100 years of victory, can vote. So we have to realize that there are opportunities and obligations to honor those who have preceded us. Our military veterans, they are fighting for our rights against tyranny. We've got to realize this and motivate others to vote. You may hear my voice. I'm pretty passionate about voting participation. Now, a couple of stats about voting, and then I'll take any questions or comments because I want to stay in touch with you. As a matter of fact, let me do this right now. If you would, and even if you are in touch with me, I've got a manual I'd like to share with you. And all I need is your email to Jack, J-A-C-K, at 4, that's number 4, gen.org. I'll repeat it, Jack at number 4, gen.org. Just give me your full name. I'll have your email and I'll send you the manual, but I'll be in touch with you. I didn't want to forget that.
And we'll be happy to send it out as well, Jack.
Oh, good. Thank you, LaShawn. I knew I'd count on you for that. Let me tell you some stats about voting. If you are 65 years old or older, the likelihood that you are a registered and regular voter, regular means you vote in primaries, is about 75%. Let me repeat that. If you are age 65 or older, the likelihood that you are a regular voter is about 75%. If you are under age 30, the likelihood that you are a regular voter is less than 20%. So between the ages of 18 and 30, we have a tremendous challenge with voter participation and voter registration. Now, I'm an intergenerational guy. I'm an official grandfather right now. Some of you know about our granddaughter, Julianne. I'm taking my grandfatherly status quite seriously in the family, but I'm also urging you to realize that the power of politics is also the power of communicating with elders. However, we also need to empower the younger voters, the new voters, in order to vote. I've got to switch my battery. Give me a moment. Digest that. excuse me, that was not my battery, that was my computer's battery. My battery is well charged. I urge you to realize that during this election season, we're going to have close elections, folks. Florida is known for close elections. I feel the more we empower others of every stage at every age to be active voters, the more we win. However you define winning, that's a very, very important point. So younger people are not voting. We can encourage them and give them the motivation that they need, voter motivation. In Leon County, we have an excellent supervisor of elections, Mark Early, who's making voting as accessible as possible. We're going to have early voting starting on the 24th of October. We're going to have mail-in voting starting very, very soon. There are all kinds of ways of enfranchising and getting people motivated to vote. We need to have the biggest turnout ever so that whoever wins gets the affirmation. Now, there are going to be people who don't win. We should thank them for their community service. That may be hard to realize, but guess what? They'll be back. So not only congratulate the winners, but tell those who may have come in second place that you'd like to communicate with them because they have a constituency too. And my last words before I take those comments or questions, LaShawn, you will be my facilitator, is November 4th should not be a day of regret. That's the day after the general election. We don't know if it's going to take a couple of days or a couple of weeks to get the results, but don't make November 4th a day of regret. Participate, be passionate, be persuasive, get your boards, get your colleagues, get your families, your authentic voices, all focused on moving forward. And I think we will win. I believe that, and I want you to believe that too. I have optimism pills every day, but I promise you that we all can get through this together. So I'm going to take a breath, and Sean, the rest is up to you.
Thank you, Jack. That was some good teaching. So I wanted to, a couple of things I wanted to key in on, and if there's a couple of comments in the chat, and if anybody has any questions or anything, please put them in there. One of the things, Jack, I wanted you to kind of talk about a little bit more. Everybody is on a different season in their nonprofit human service career. If you can just give a little bit more detail. You're a nonprofit ED, program director, CEO, whatever. One of the candidates says, can I meet with you for lunch? Can you tell me about the sector? What is your advice for situations like that, especially for those that are on the newer side of this journey?
Well, thank you. We want to play by the rules. The answer to your question is yes. If you want to meet with us or we want to reach out to you to share what our perspective is on the need and the opportunities we have for serving, however you structure your services, the answer is yes. But I always make them aware that if asked by their opponent, you will give equal time and equal information. Again, you're not promising an endorsement. You're not threatening opposition. We have to be very careful. These folks do have very fragile egos. Now, what I do recommend, again, back on the bipartisan board or bipartisan volunteer category, is someone who is their supporter can be your negotiator. So if you know that a member of your board or your organization is in their private life a supporter, they could be a conduit to get that candidate to meet with you and discuss what your needs are. So that is what I call an intermediary credibility agent. But again, be very cautious. Do not show any preference. Meet with everybody because we want 100% support no matter where they are politically.
Awesome. Thank you. And then time philanthropy. If you could kind of expound upon that a little bit, because we're in the microwave generation, and that just doesn't mean age. We want it quick, 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 quick. But if you can expound upon that a little bit more.
Well, the traditional word is volunteerism, but let me just tell you, and some people even insert the word just. They say, oh, I'm just a volunteer. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. You're giving your precious time and life's treasure of experience for a cause you are passionate about. The word just does not belong in that sentence. So when I speak to a group of, quote, volunteers, and I say, I consider you time philanthropists, there's usually a whole kind of sit up, and I'm proud to be a time philanthropist. I am proud to give of my time for this good cause. So it's attitudinal. And it's going to take a while for that to take hold, but the more people I ask to use the term, the more constant it will be. So I'm saying that folks need to be called time philanthropists, formerly known as volunteers. And you don't have to change your website right away or your brochure, but that's something that is attitudinal and it has great meaning. And again, remember my lesson, LaShawn, the more time philanthropy we attract, the more money philanthropy we will collect. They are connected. So the more time you give, the more likely you understand the cause and the mission and the impact you make. And somebody is very, very likely to be a supporter.
Okay, here's the question in the chat. Jack, if someone is new to advocacy and doesn't know how to set themselves up for success, where would you recommend they start? Talking points, case statement, where would you recommend they start if they're new?
Well, I discovered an excellent manual that I'm going to send out so folks can kind of read up on it. It's kind of a manual of effective community advocacy. I think affiliation with organizations, United Partners is a good place to start, not just because you're my host today, but that's a very good organization. We have INI here in Leon County, the Institute for Innovation and Excellence. We've got to join together and share each other's strategies. If we're isolated from the whole, that is not effective. I have a very strong affiliation and support system for the Healthy Start coalitions. They are now diversifying their advocacy at the community level and creating multi-partisan public policy committees. So it takes some work, but it's worth the investment. We need to leverage the knowledge we have on behalf of our cause for folks who make decisions, and that should be a percentage of our work, not only to serve directly, but to create the opportunity for success, for resources, and all together we can row in the same direction and get to our goals.
And so you hit on something that's really profound, and we've been talking a lot about that with the sector, and that's when you said it's a percentage of our work, right? Advocacy should be infused in everything that we do. What percentage would you say? Because a lot of times advocacy only comes when we're in the midst of crisis, but what is that percentage that should be infused in?
Well, I'm not going to evade the question. I can't avoid it either, but I'm not going to evade the question. But I think we have to really understand that there is a role for professional staff in envisioning and organizing, and there's a role for time philanthropists, board members, or other folks in the community who will give the time. I think that needs to be assessed organization to organization. I would say, rule of thumb, that if an executive puts somewhere between 10 and 15% of their time, however you calculate that, into learning the tools and strategies and skills of advocacy, and then instilling that in their board, and then finally in their wider community, and give voice to the family members who are served, that's a very important part of this negotiation, is those whose lives have been changed because we exist should have full voice. They should have full representation. Again, I really believe our board should reflect the diversity of who we serve. It should not be a completely separate group. It should be an integrated group, and I can help with that and more thoughts about that. So I say, for starters, 10 to 15% of time by the executive, maybe an equal proportion by the staff, and then definitely it should be 40 to 60% of the organization's governing body. Now, no offense to golf tournaments, no offense to dinners or parties. Those are social events, and I think those are valuable. But I think concentrating on the community opinion leaders, the media, the faith community, candidates for office, the business community, these are time well spent, and it's achievable. And we have lots of success stories to say that this can be done. So again, most of the folks in the sound of my voice live in and around the capital city. Well, my gosh, we don't have to travel across the state to get to know these people and their staff members. We've got very important human service agencies in this town. Some are state-based, some are county-based. Let's go forward and make sure that we are very powerful. Whatever happens November 3rd, we get back into action on November 4th.
So we have the questions rolling in here, Jack. So one person says, and this was a private message, she's very frustrated because she's tried reaching out to get support for local families and community, but it seems like no one is listening. So she says, other than protesting, what are some choices she have, options she have for her voice to be heard?
I would like to answer that in full. There are very important ways to get our voices heard. A lot of that has to do with how we message and who our messengers are. Again, jack@4gen.org, I'd like to have that private conversation.
We will put her in contact with you. She is a member and friend of UPHS. So I'll definitely.
I'd like to help that.
Yes. Absolutely. I know your passion for kids. Okay. So what have you seen work best for organizations meeting with electeds to remain at top of mind? You kind of hit on that one a little bit.
Well, let me jump right to that, LaShawn,
okay.
so I don't forget the train.
Okay.
Again, there should always be an agenda that you have going into a meeting. This is the key information you want to share. This is the key idea you are bringing and the key strategy for getting that idea implemented. Sometimes you're only going to get 10 or 15 minutes tops. It's got to be on a one-pager. It's got to be clear and consistent, and it's got to be the promise that if they need to know more or their staff needs to know more, there is more. Again, a lot of these folks are extremely busy. If we try to tell them the history of the world of our organization or the history of the world of our services, the curtain's going to close. Sometimes we only have a brief amount of time. But the area of prevention, for example, is something that is really reflected in every speech they make. Every candidate says the following in one word or another: I'm here to build a future for our children that's healthy and safe. We want to have strong families. We want to have lower crime rates. We want to have more productive tax-paying citizens. Have you heard that? So we have heard the slogans. Now it's time for solutions. And we know as experts that we have solutions. So we're basically helping them keep their promises. Now, we don't have to be offensive when we say that. We could say it with a big smile and wide open eyes, but we're here to help you. I heard your speech about improving education. Well, guess what? Education begins at birth. It does not begin in kindergarten. We have to have a persuasive way of saying, you want to keep kids safe, then invest in tried and true prevention programs. You want to keep kids healthy, then give them access before they get in trouble with diseases. Let's reduce smoking. Let's improve our access to all kinds of care. And we can do that, and we have. It's just a question of expanding to meet the need. I get enthusiastic because, again, I've been at this for 42 years, and I think I know the difference between a slogan and a solution.
I like it. One last question, Jack. What are your thoughts on current or former elected officials serving on boards? And then the second part of that is, how can EDs create balance so that they stay nonpartisan?
Well, I'll take the second part first. Is just be very, very careful. Don't wear your favorite candidate's button to a public meeting. I'm sorry, but people who do not support that candidate will not listen to you. And same with bumper stickers. Sometimes I take a quick poll when I go to a meeting, how many bumper stickers are on cars, and I try to be very, very polite about that. Now, how we deal with elected officials is elected officials, I think, have a say, but I do not recommend current elected officials serving on boards in which they are making decisions in their office, whether it be school board members, county commissioners, city commissioners, legislators. It almost feels to me that they could be advisory, they could be supportive without using the official title. Now, former elected officials who have either been term limited out or decided not to run or even defeated, they could be a reservoir of information on how it really works. So I stay in touch with a lot of former elected officials. I'm on speed dial with them. I'm on cell phones with them because they are freer to talk with me these days. And usually I pass those messages on to the causes I care about deeply. So I say use their experience to your benefit, but in terms of actual service currently on your board, if they're making decisions that affect your board, I'd be careful of appearance of conflict of interest. And again, I'd like to talk to that again as we go forward, because this is not an easy road to travel. I'm asking folks to climb some hills and to watch out for some potholes, but I'd be glad to be helpful if folks want to be in touch with me.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be putting you in touch with a couple people for sure. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We like to start on time. We like to end on time. Like I said, Jack is a friend, an uncle of UPHS, and so we value him so much. As he said, I know a couple people have emailed me. I'll be glad to put you in contact with him. I can tell you he's very open to meeting with people because he's a mentor, and that's what great mentors do. The recording of this training, we should have it ready by the end of the week. So if you're interested in that, just reach out to me. It will be on our YouTube channel as well as Facebook. So we will certainly make it available. So thank you again for your time, and we will see you all soon. Thank you so much, Jack.
You're welcome. Get out there and vote.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.